I am welcoming you today from Nairobi, Kenya. It's my great pleasure to have you here on this webinar today on the future of the textiles and apparel sector from an Indo-African perspective. I will be your moderator today. My name is Caroline Afferbeck. I work for the Supporting Indian Trade and Investment Program, which is implemented by the International Trade Center, and we are funded by the UK's Department of International Development. We are facilitating the seminar today in partnership with the Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, SITA, the India ITME Society, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and the Ethiopian Textile and Garment Manufacturers Association. Ladies and gentlemen, during the next 2 hours, we aim to look beyond the current crisis and have an outlook into the near future, into the year 2025, 5 years down the road. In our panel discussion today, we will have panelists from the public sector, and I'm very pleased that we have the Honorable Cabinet Secretary Betty Miner of the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, Kenya with us. We will have also institutional leaders, business owners from across the industry and the development finance side with us. So they are putting forth their views on the textile and apparel market trends and on emerging opportunities for 2025 with an Indo-African perspective. So we will look into the question what it takes in a post-COVID-19 environment to build a resilient industry that cooperates and that competes while delivering socio-economic development. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go into our panel discussion, I am now very pleased to welcome you to the opening of the seminar. And our seminar will be opened by Mr. Ashish Shah, who is the Director of the Division of Country Programs at the International Trade Center. He will be followed by Mr. Ajul Shah, who is the Chair of the local textiles and apparel sector of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And then we will have Hari Shankar, the chairman of the India ITME Society. And I'm very pleased that we also have Mr. T. Rajkumar, the chairman, Confederation of Indian Textile Industry. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to now hand over to Mr. Ashish Shah. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Caroline, Your Excellency, Ms. Betty Miner, Cabinet Secretary at the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Enterprise Development in Kenya, Mr. T. Rajkumar, Chairman, Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, Mr. S. Hari Shankar, Chairman, India ITME Society, Mr. Ajul Shah, good to have another Shah with me, a local textiles and apparel sector, the Chair, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and CEO of the Kenya Shirts Manufacturers Company Limited, Mr. Goshu Negash, President of the Ethiopian Textile and Garment Manufacturers Association, and the CEO of Vitcon Private Limited Company. Distinguished panelists, participants, and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, namaste, and jambo to East Africa, India, and beyond. It is my great pleasure today to welcome you all to this webinar on the future of the textiles and apparel sector. Without any doubt, the global textiles and apparel sector has been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. Worldwide, orders along the textiles and apparel value chain are currently down by about 42%, while companies expect their 2020 turnover to decrease by 32%. Most companies expect to reach pre-crisis levels in early 2021, although some companies are more optimistic and are expecting a quicker turnaround. Today's webinar will look beyond the current crisis and explore future prospects from an Indo-African and South-South perspective. Over the course of the next 5 years, the global apparel market is projected to grow at a CAGR of 5.5%. This growth is partly driven by emerging consumer markets, including in Asia. At the same time, international buyers are increasingly diversifying their sourcing base to new cost-competitive destinations, including East Africa. African countries, as you know, enjoy favorable access to key consumer markets such as the European Union and the United States, enabling savings of tariff duties of more than 30% on some apparel items in comparison to India. Also, the African consumer market is expected to grow rapidly over the next decade. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement, better known as the AFCFTA, entered into force in May of 2019 and will provide market access to a combined population of more than 1 billion people, including through e-commerce. Today's webinar aims at identifying emerging opportunities in the African textiles and apparel value chain for African and Indian manufacturers and beyond. These opportunities are available to both SMEs and to larger companies. The webinar will also identify the challenges that need to be addressed, including by government. Finally, we will talk about the financing needs to build up a robust industry. Today's webinar brings together stakeholders from across the Indo-East African textile and apparel industry. We have policymakers, we have institutions, including financial institutions, and we have businesses representing the entire textile and apparel value chain, including textile engineering companies and manufacturers. It is heartening to see that many businesses present here today are targeting domestic markets, regional markets, and international markets, using both traditional and new distribution channels such as e-commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, discussions and deliberations today can only mark a starting point. Let us set the tone today for deeper discussions on how the new normal will help shape further engagement and new partnership opportunities between India and East African institutions, associations, and companies to the benefit of a robust, integrated, and sustainable textile and apparel sector in the future. COVID-19 has clearly reminded us of the importance of resilience, but it has also showed that in adversity, there always lies opportunity. It is time for you, the stakeholders in this important industry, to seize the new opportunities as they arise. I wish to, of course, close by thanking our partners, the Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, CITI, the India ITME Society, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and the Ethiopian Textile and Garment Manufacturers Association. We value very much the collaboration we have had with you and the support we've had with you and from you over the past years. And we look forward to further partnering with you on South-South trade and investment promotion and technology transfer related initiatives. I also, of course, last but not least, wish to thank our funder, the Department for International Development of the United Kingdom, for their commitment and support to ITC's flagship South-South Trade and Investment Program, and in particular to ITC's Supporting Indian Trade and Investment in Africa, better known as SITA project. So I wish you very fruitful interactions during today's webinar, and I look forward very much to learning from all of you. Thank you, Dhanyavad, and Asante Sana.
Thank you very much, Ashish. I have now the pleasure to hand over to Mr. Ajul Shah, Chair of the local textiles and apparel sector of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and the CEO of the Kenya Shirts Manufacturers Company. Mr. Ajul Shah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Caroline. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello? Sorry,
Yes,
I'm having a
we can
lot
hear you
of
very
challenges today.
We can hear you very well. It's all good.
Okay.
Please proceed, Mr. Shah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we have lost the connection. Are you okay? I will try one more time. Mr. Shah, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Fantastic.
Sorry, I'm having to use my phone because my laptop decided to give me all sorts of problems just today.
No worries. Please proceed. Okay, it looks to me that Mr. Shah has some technical issues. So may I please go then to Mr. Hari Shankar, Chairman of the Confederation of Indian, Chairman of the India ITME Society, and we will come hopefully back to Mr. Ajul Shah in a moment. So please, Mr. Hari Shankar, the floor is yours. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Distinguished guests, panelists, ladies and gentlemen from around the world, a very good morning to you all. It is with great pleasure that I extend a very warm welcome at the opening of today's webinar on the future of the textile and apparel sector with an Indo-African perspective. The objective of this webinar is for the public and private stakeholders to discuss how the global textiles and apparel sector will look like in the near future over the next 5 years in the post-COVID world. The expected market, supply and trade dynamics and the emerging opportunities for both African and Indian companies shall be the main focus. We are fortunate to have an elite panel in our midst just to enable these discussions and to map the way forward. This webinar also comes as a postscript to the recently launched successful exhibition series, which is the Indo-Africa, which was held in Addis Ababa at the Millennium Hall just this past February. And in preparation to the exhibition Indo-Africa, ITC, which is the International Trade Center, undertook an extensive survey across 110 textile and apparel companies in East Africa. And the survey only confirmed that the large majority of manufacturers are interested in upgrading machinery, which in some segments of the value chain happens to be over 20 years old and hence outdated. Investing in new machinery will enable manufacturers to comply with scale and quality requirements and also to diversify both products and the range of markets. Also, absolute compliance with global environmental standards and practices will be the prerequisite in the post-COVID world going forward. The current COVID pandemic, as we know, has caused massive disruptions due to the rare shock caused by both supply and demand. We've had, as we know, production shutdowns and also supply chain disruptions. Although economies around the world are slowly starting to open things again, things are expected to remain slow in the immediate short-term future. However, there is that old saying, crisis is also an opportunity. And so we should work towards expanding the African continent's future market and trading opportunities. African countries can build more resilient and sustainable economies if they can get a few things going following this pandemic. Firstly, it is very crucial to diversify African economies and to strengthen a few strategic sectors, one of which happens to be textiles and apparels, which, as we know, has a key role in employment generation and trade facilitation. Africa must also embrace the digital age and be able to adopt more and more digital technologies for both production and service. Finally, Africa must further strengthen intra-regional trade. The hope is for individual countries to make a concerted effort to harmonize their regulations, customs controls, and work to eliminate barriers in general. Also to help improve infrastructure and connectivity so that we can work towards lower logistic costs. The current crisis provides an opportunity to make more concrete steps towards realizing the African continental free trade area. With this in mind, I once again welcome all panelists and participants from around the world to join today's webinar on the future of the textile and apparel sector with an Indo-African perspective. Thank you very much, and I hand the floor back to Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shankar. I now have the pleasure to welcome Mr. T. Rajkumar, the chairman of the Confederation of Indian Textile Industry. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. On behalf of the Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, I welcome you all for this webinar, and I'm extremely happy that Confederation of Indian Textile Industry has partnered with India International Trade Center and SITA and with UK Aid for this seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, on behalf of the Confederation of Indian Textile Industry and the webinar organization, I wholeheartedly welcome His Excellency, Her Excellency Betty Maina, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Textiles, Trade and Enterprise Development, Kenya, and His Excellency Teka Ghebreyesus, State Minister, Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ethiopia, and all other eminent panelists, speakers, members from other organizations, and all our listeners who are connected with us today from different parts of India and the world. It's a great honor and privilege for Citi to partner with International Trade Center, ITC, support of Indian Trade and Investment for African Initiative, SITA, India Trade Textile Machinery Exhibition Society, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and Ethiopian Textile and Garment Manufacturers Association, and UK Aid for partnering with Citi in organizing this seminar. Kenya, Ethiopia, and most of the East African nations have a very, very long relationship, traditional relationship with India for decades and generations. I hope that the seminar will be fruitful for the entire textile and apparel value chain of India and African countries. Friends, under the dynamic guidance of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, and our Honorable Union Minister of Textiles, Srimati Smriti Zubin Irani ji, and our respected Secretary Textiles, Shri Ravi Kapoor ji, Indian textile and clothing industry is determined to reach a market size of US $350 billion by 2025. And this again will only strengthen the partnership with India and East Africa, because partnering with East Africa is the important agenda of the Indian textile industry and Government of India and industry stakeholders for working day and night. We all know the Indian textile and apparel sector is one of the oldest and traditional sectors and dates back several centuries. And it contributes significantly to the Indian GDP, around 3 to 4% of GDP and 11% of the Indian textile exports. And it also helps to have an employment of more than 110 million people, including poor and marginal illiterate women of this country. It gives great livelihood to more than 60 million cotton farmers. And also India has 14% of world textile production and 5% of world exports. The same can be replicated in the East African countries, again because India and Africa has the same tradition and also has many customs and relationships as common. Keeping in mind India's rich heritage, abundant raw material, presence of entire textile value chain, skilled workforce, and currently prevailing global trade situation. It will be a win-win situation for India and Africa to foster the economic ties in textile and apparel sector. Economic relationship between India and Africa has vast potential for growth, given the obvious complementaries that exist between the two countries. Friends, ITC has been working with SITA for a very, very long time. I know, and the relationship ITC has with SITA, SIMA, and other organizations connected with textiles, and it has been way back. I could say at least it's more than 10 years ITC, SITA, and the other organizations are working together. Woven fabric of cotton and cotton yarn are the largest exporters of the textile and apparel commodity from India to African countries. Over the past few years, production of apparels have shifted from China to other competitive destinations like Bangladesh, Vietnam, Ethiopia, Kenya, etc. During the current pandemic of COVID-19 and with the prevailing situation over the world, a lot of major customers are willing to move away from their traditional manufacturing base. So India and African together can reap up the current situation, and by working in this correct direction, both countries can increase the trade of not only textile and apparel commodities, but other products as well. Ethiopia is one of the most favored destinations for apparel manufacturers among African countries, and Kenya has been traditionally a destination for this too, and is rapidly attracting foreign direct investments due to the benefits like stable political environment, developing infrastructure, large workforce, low wages in the country. Many major textile and apparel giants like Arvind Limited, Raymond's, Aston Apparels, etc., KBR Mills, SEM Textiles, and others have already announced and moved having investments in Ethiopia and other countries. SITA and ITC have been successfully collaborating on investments and trade promotion between India and East Africa since 2000, including facilitation of investment promotion, visits from East African delegates to India, bilateral investment exploratory visits from India to East Africa. On the investment front, efforts have led of two large companies from South investing in garmenting plants in Ethiopia, and a follow-up to investment mission in 2017 and 18 under the collaboration partnership with ITC, supporting Indian trade and investments for Africa SITA program. India's KBR Mills Limited has set up a garmenting unit in Ethiopia's Mekelle Industrial Park, and this factory now produces close to 10 million items annually. It will provide job to 700 people in Ethiopia and can export garments to Europe and USA. It's only an example, and it's many more to follow. Engagement between India and East Africa stakeholders is beyond investment and trade linkage. I'm glad to see that by now our initial engagement has also yielded in positive results at the farm level. In November 2017, the Southern India Mills Association, which is the regional association of the Southern Regional Association of the Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, had entered into a tripartite partnership agreement with the Ugandan Cotton Development Organization and the Ugandan National Agriculture Research Association on germplasm exchange for improved cotton seed varieties. The new varieties will combine strengths of both the Indian and Ugandan seeds and benefit farmers in India and Uganda with potential impact of 3 million livelihoods in Uganda, and the same can be implemented in other East African countries. I am extremely grateful to Govind, Caroline, and many others who have visited many times to India, and my special thanks to Govind Venu Prasad, who have been closely working with both SITA and SIMA. I am extremely hopeful that India and African countries holds immense potential, and if we work together, we can bring many good things in the textile and apparel trade between India and East Africa, and I'm sure the years to come will be a very fruitful years for both the countries. And I'm extremely grateful and thankful.
Mr. Rajkumar, you are now on mute.
I'm extremely grateful to ITC, SITA, and UKA, and all others who have partnered with Confederation of Indian Textile Industry for this webinar. And I welcome you all for this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajkumar. I will now go back to Mr. Ajul Shah. I think he's now back. So maybe Mr. Ajul Shah, we will try it one more time now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I'll try and keep this short just in case if I get challenges again. Good morning to everybody. Good morning, Mheshimiwa Madam Betty Maina. I'm very happy to have you join us today. I'll be very brief, very quick. We have about 5 or 6 textile mills in Kenya. We have a very thriving export promotion zone, factories manufacturing garments for the US. We have actually a growing, after a decline over a few years, we have a growing sector in the garment manufacturing, which is now, it used to be mostly corporate uniforms, industrial uniforms, but we are now seeing more growth in retail wear, where I think India has a great opportunity to come in and provide us with fabrics, probably look at setting up of accessory making small industries here. Those are the things, the collaborations that we would like to see. Talking about having more of a collaboration between India and Africa, I think what we need to look at, one of the things is, how do we make it easy? Because we're used to the Chinese model where you have the Canton Fair and you have various cities like Iwu and places like that where you go and get everything. This is, I visit India every year to do our purchasing. And this is one of the things I would like to see, to make it easy for African countries, African buyers, traders to come to India and easily source fabrics of different types, accessories, probably even invite investment into Africa, into Kenya. Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria are some of the countries which are leading the way in the fashion industry, and it offers a great potential for growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ajul. So ladies and gentlemen, we are now coming to our panel discussion. And we will have 11 panelists talking on various aspects and from different perspectives. So we will do one round of questions today, which will be followed by a question and answer session. For the question and answer session, we will prioritize written questions. So I'm encouraging you to use the Q&A facility and to submit your written question as early as possible so that we can take your question into consideration. So ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to go into the discussion. And as a ground rule for all panelists, so we will have enough time for discussion, I kindly request you keep it short, keep it up to 4 minutes, please, so that we have enough time for Q&As. So I'm very pleased to welcome our first panelist, Honorable CS Betty Maina. And Honorable CS, your ministry has been very active over the past weeks and months in supporting the local manufacturing for the domestic market. You are also currently very much involved in the preparations for the negotiations on a free trade agreement between the US and between Kenya. And this FTA would follow the AGOA, the African Growth Opportunity Act, which will phase out in September 2020. And we know that AGOA has been an important agreement for the Kenyan garment exports because they enjoy duty-free access to the US. Let us also consider that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is to be launched in early 2021. So Honorable CS, against this background and from your perspective, what are the key opportunities emerging over the next few years for the companies, be they domestic oriented, be they export oriented, be they locally owned, or be they foreign owned. So what do you see is the emerging opportunities, and what type of support from the government side would you offer for the industry, including in question like environmental and energy costs? So over to you, Honorable CS.
All right. Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you to ITC and KAM and CIMA and CII for the organization of this webinar. I think it is quite timely. Drawing on the comments of Ashish when he opened the meeting, clearly outlined that there is a huge market for textiles and apparel in the world. When I look around on the screen, all of us are wearing some clothes. I don't think we made them ourselves. I think we went to the store to buy, and nobody is wearing something that looks like the other person, at least so far what I can see. So there is a great opportunity in the fashion and apparel, in the apparel sector all over the world. Two, I think one of the things that we have established is clearly that there's a large market, and most of that is being made outside the countries in which it is consumed. I think perhaps with the exception of India and China, who tend to wear the stuff that they make for themselves. So for us in Africa, for us in Kenya, we see a great opportunity to supply apparel products, not just for ourselves. I think the first market is, of course, ourselves. And we, in our case, one of the challenges we face is that we have a great market for pre-owned or pre-used clothes that we are seeking to address. But as mentioned by Caroline, the Kenyan sector, Ashish has also mentioned that, and I'm sure Pankaj will say that a lot of the apparels that are made in Kenya are consumed in the US or in Europe because of the preferential trade agreements that we have reached with Europe and with America under AGOA. We've recently done a study, and we expect that even the Africa Continental Free Trade Area provides an opportunity for the apparel sector. So there is at least 3 preferential arrangements that we think we can utilize, and any investor in Kenya would have access to the local market and those external markets, and for export products. Now, one of the things that Kenya has or doesn't have enough of is we don't have enough mills. We seek to have a vertically integrated sector, but in reality, of the nearly $500 million worth of apparels that were exported to the US last year from the export processing zones in Kenya, most of that, if not all, was made from imported fabric. So we've long, aspired to have a textile mill within more textile mills within Kenya in order to be able to benefit. But those textile mills can work from imported yarn, but also could work from locally grown cotton and other fabrics. So government focus in recent times has been to seek to grow and to attract investment in additional mills or other, fabric manufacturers, and that's something we would, be keen to see. In terms of the investment climate, Kenya has a lot of has done what many other countries have done, so it's not really very different in terms of setting up focused infrastructure through the export processing zones, or what we are now working on the special economic zones. We have heard the comment that you made, Caroline, and it's a comment that has been made by other investors, which is the desire for cheaper, a cheaper business environment with regard to electricity, with regard to logistics, with regard to water. And we seek to do that. Government last year, this year actually, has established that we'll have a cheaper power for people who set up in industrial parks, especially in the special economic zones of 5 cents per hour, per unit, electricity. But I also appreciate that the electricity is not the only motivating factor. I think investors are encouraged to take the whole picture, and I appreciate what our colleague from SIMA mentioned, that we look, investors look at the entire package. It's the cost of electricity, and it's the cost of labor, it's the tradability of that labor, it is the potential markets. So I think as we see the diversification in global supply chains that are occurring as a result of COVID, we in Africa, and I'm sure my colleague from Ethiopia will confirm that, we in Africa are setting up ourselves to benefit from this global diversification, and we really welcome the players on the call and other players to consider our countries, because we are set for these larger markets, and we have responsive governments who wish to make it possible for your investment to thrive. And for those who have invested in Kenya, I'm sure you can confirm that your investment and you've participated in these market access arrangements that Kenya has reached. A final one, and as I'm sure I reach my last minute, Kenya is starting negotiations with the Americans on a free trade agreement as a mode and with an intention of securing the market. The Africa Growth and Opportunity Act will expire in 2025 September, and there is every indication from the US so far that it shall not be renewed. And given the fact that for us, the US is our third largest export market, mostly driven by textiles and apparel, it's important that we send the signal to investors that we are keen on securing this market. And therefore, it's not just, I think it's not just textile, but I think free trade agreements have proven that they have capacity to create a predictable environment for investors. And this is something that we seek to do. We start those negotiations in July, and we hope and pray that they will be successful and concluded quite speedily to send that signal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable CS. I actually would like to take the opportunity to ask one question from the audience to you. So I will take this opportunity right now. So Kenya has blue water access and good connectivity, good infrastructure, excellent workforce, yet power costs, as you actually pointed out yourself, are a bit on the higher side. And that impedes, of course, the investment in textiles. In India, the industry has worked with government to reduce power costs through investing in green energy that can be offset against power drawn from the grid. Does Kenya have such a plan which would boost investment attractiveness perhaps? So it's about green energy, the question. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Caroline. And actually, I mean, well, the power mix in Kenya is almost 80% green. We draw a lot of our power from hydro and geo. And that's something we continue to encourage. But with regard to the specific question on whether manufacturers or millers can generate their own power and sell it off to the grid, yes, that is possible. The energy policy permits that, and we have actually encouraged businesses to invest, and there's a few who have already done that. Not a large amount, but 30 megawatts or small amounts like that, but it is possible to have a wheeling and an off-grid, supply excess power to the grid from your own generation, and that's, so the answer is yes, Kenya does have that policy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable CS. We will now go to our second panelist. I am very pleased to welcome Mr. D.L. Sharma, who is the Deputy Chairman of SITA and the Managing Director of Vartman Yarn and Threads Limited. Welcome, Mr. Sharma. My question to you is about a very recent success story by the Indian industry. So the global market for personal protective equipment is expected to grow largely over the next years. And within a period of 2 months, within a period of 60 days or so, India has become the world's second largest manufacturer of medical PPEs. And I think, currently India is producing for the domestic market, but of course there is some expectations to export as well. So Mr. Sharma, can you tell us how India managed to become a key manufacturer for PPEs in such a short time? And what was and is the role of the government in this? And is there any lessons learned for the East African textile sector? Over to you. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. As we discussed, that you are very right that India could ramp up the production of PPE in a small time. Actually, as historically we say, the mother is the necessity, the mother of inventions. So therefore, looking to the situation of COVID, which was never expected, it's an unexpected event. And medical textile, in any case, has been a field where the application of textile is medical. But when I think the social distancing norms and keeping away from the touch to human, I think this was one of the trigger point to see that how to develop the protective equipments, whether it is a mask or it is a coveralls or caps, anything which required for medical protections. So understanding that need, the industry really come up very fast. And even in small areas, like I belong to a place which is up in the north, a place called Ludhiana, is a part of Punjab state in India. And this is primarily a small, in the knitting center of the country, like one in south in Tirupur. And there are hundreds of knitters, small knitters, and they make garments. And they found that there's an opportunity in this to really participate. And I think the government support was that immediately they institutionalized the manufacturing in terms of the specifications, the standards, the approval processes, the research laboratory in terms of giving the approval as well as giving the technical know-how to the entrepreneurs. And as a result, with the initiative and the guidance from the government, and it was a blessing from our Ministry of Textile and the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, and so the industry came up, in fact, built products of PPE, which were almost 1/10 of the cost, which if we would have imported from other countries like China or somewhere where it was available. So with the almost a very, very low cost, the entrepreneurs could respond to this request and come up for manufacturing fabrics. I belong to a company which is one of the largest in India. It is a Vardhaman Textiles Limited. And that group, which has this subsidiary where I'm the managing director. So that company actually makes yarns and fabrics of all types. So the fabric development came up with some technical support from the research associations, and they gave the guidance in terms of the chemical treatment to be given to the fabric. And also then the standards organization which are there, whether it was ISO or any international standards which require to be met and for the purpose of certifications. So with those kind of standard specification, I think the in-house development and some support from the outside, we could come up. And even today, as far as we have a small garmenting company also as a part of Vardhaman Group. And that company has already, made about over 500,000 masks and in another 2-3 million of the overalls, etc., and some of the technical PPs required like caps, etc., and So this way, and the small manufacturers, they have to a great extent diversified from making the intimate wears or the undergarments or the t-shirts, and diversified into the PP material, particularly mask. So mask is today a kind of a very, very cheaply available anywhere from these small places. So where the government support came in terms of standardization, in terms of the institutionalization of the approval processes, and the help to the industry in the form of specifications, in the form of materials, and those kind of support, etc. So in fact, this was a new opportunity which came up. We never looked for that, but somehow because of the COVID and this unexpected health conditions, pandemic, so we could diversify into PP manufacturers. So if there are any questions, I can.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. And I think you actually responded to one of the questions we had from the audience, which is about the challenges for the textile industry to meet the present expectations in medical textiles. And I think you pointed out that standardization and the certification was perhaps one of the key challenges, right?
Yeah, that's true. And we have the South India Textile Research Association and DRDO, which is government-controlled defense research and development organizations, and the Ordnance Factory Board, which is a part of, again, the government of the, I think they diversified into quickly understanding the international standards from the international authorities, and then putting them onto, all came together and put them into make India-specific standard which would be required. So therefore, they gave that set of standards which need to be met, and they set up the approval process and identified industry, the research association, like we have a South India Research Association, we have a Defense Research and Development Organization to basically certify, and some other authorities. And even in North India, Textile Research Association. So they will give the approval and also guidance.
Thank you so much for also pointing out the role, the important role in this process of the research associations. Now, I'm very pleased to come to our next panelist, Mr. Pankaj Bedi, the chairman of the apparel export sector and the chairman of the United IM. Pankaj, you know, your company is one of the largest garment manufacturers in sub-Saharan Africa, and you have also successfully invested along the value chain, including in West Africa. What piece of advice would you give to a manufacturing company based in East Africa on how to remain competitive in the post-COVID-19 environment? What are the top key points, the top 3 key points that you see that are important in the near future for manufacturers in this region? Over to you, Pankaj.
Good morning to everybody. My special regards to our CS Betty, and special thanks to her for being very, very proactive in these tough times which country is facing. Caroline, actually this is a tricky question because, you know, I strongly believe that we are all in the same storm, but in different boats, and one size fits all is not going to work here. Having said that, I thought maybe I would share our experience, what happened how we managed so far. Maybe that can help set some perspective for others also. So in February, when China, you know, lockdown happened and all that, we started discussing internally that if this happens in US, how it's going to, you know, affect our buyers and how it's going to affect us and how our buyers are going to behave and how we should behave. And we decided that, you know, for us at least, it would be important that we start thinking on protecting our value and our community, because that's what we have created over the decades, and how we can continue, you know, supporting that value what we have created. And then we started discussing with our buyers, and we said that in case this happens in US, how are they going to, you know, continue, and what are their plans and all that. Frankly, they were also not clear what's going to happen and how their buyers are going to behave and all that. Fortunately, we discussed and we had an agreement, and they asked us that what we would want to do. And we said, we are very clear. We want to protect our value. We want to protect our community. We have more than 10,000 workers, and, you know, with indirect jobs and dependents and all that. It's a community of 100,000 people. So how they would be able to support us? And they said, we would want to just continue, we would not want to shut down. And said that you cooperate with us also, because you don't know how things will be.
Sorry to interrupt you. There seems to be a bit of an issue with your micro. Perhaps you try to go closer to it. Thank you.
Yeah. So so our buyers also said that, you know, they would need cooperation from us, and we all agreed mutually that yes, we will defer payments, we will work with them on changing styles, whatever they want. But the core idea was that we should, you know, protect our community, and I'm glad that we did that. We continued. We decided that we'll lose money by running instead of shutting down. And today I feel that I think we did the right thing by doing that. And now going forward, we see that there would be a lot of opportunities, because you know, the whole sourcing is changing, the strategies of the buyers are changing. Africa has a great opportunity because there is a serious strategy for Africa from a lot of buyers. We have good buyers in the region, like we have gone to H&M and everybody. They're all very committed to the sector and to develop the sector here. So I'm just hoping that all the companies will believe in their own experience, their own knowledge, their buyers, their communities, and work hand in hand. And governments will also start thinking on, you know, looking at what kind of bounce back strategies we can have. We have been working with our government here to strategize what kind of bounce back package we can set up, so that, you know, when the business starts and the markets open. Right now, though the US is open, but it's going to take built up time. And we are very hopeful that way that, you know, if we work together, we'll consolidate, we sustain, stabilize, and gradually come back. We have the experience of 2008 when the markets were in the similar situation. They were, nobody had direction, but at least from there, at least I can say that our company grew by 4 times. So there is hope, and we should believe in our experience and the skill and the community. And hopefully we cross one day, we cross week, we crossed quarter now, and we'll cross the year too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pankaj, for pointing out that the relationship between buyers and the companies has been very important over the last couple of months, and it's about really working hand in hand also with the governments, and for pointing out that, well, actually companies are sitting in the same boat, but maybe from very different perspectives, and there need to be perhaps different solutions. Now, I'm very pleased to come to our next panelist, who is Mr. Seruhun Abebe Gisaf of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ethiopia. He is the Textile and Leather Director at the ministry. And sir, to you, my question is, over the past years, Ethiopia has gained a lot of attention by both international buyers who source more and more from this region. Pankaj mentioned just now H&M, for example, but also by foreign investors. And we have learned about that also during the opening remarks by Mr. Rajkumar, who set up their units in the industrial parks to benefit from the duty-free market access and competitive costs. Now, so to you, my question, what opportunities and incentives will the government of Ethiopia offer to foreign textile and apparel investors in the next few years? And also, how does the government actually support companies in their post-investment phase? Over to you. You are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Caroline.
Yes,
good morning,
I can
all.
Hear you.
Good morning, all. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you so much for this opportunity given to me to share my perspective on this important topic. And I think it is a well-timed topic. In fact, the state minister was very keen to be in attendance, but he was unable to be here because he have a pre-scheduled meeting with the higher officials of the government. So I received a message from him to express his gratitude to those who prepared this forum. Thank you, Mr. Hari. We had a good textile machinery exhibition last time at the Millennium Hall, and we have a good feedback from exhibitors and from the government also. So we need this platform to be kept, and from our ministry, we are very keen to support for the next program also. And I want to thank Mr. Rajkumar. Yes, we have a strong institute because of your ITC, because of your support. We have the Textile Industry Development Institute. Most of the experts and higher officials in that institute, they have a capacity building in ITC. So we have a strong institutes. So this institute is supporting our industries. Saying this, I need to pass my greetings and my, I'm very happy to see here also Mr. Hashish, our best partner and colleagues, and also the CEO of Canoria, Africa, Mr. Hashish. Of course, we miss you. For the last 3 or 4 months, we didn't see you. Mr. Taka, His Excellency, also miss you. He passed his greeting to you also. Special thanks. Saying this, yes, we have, when I come to your issues, with full of confidence, I can say, yes, we do have better, different financial and physical incentive package for FDI. And that's why for the last 3 years, it was 46% growth in FDI inflow. It is one of the most dynamic and largest FDI recent in Africa. Maybe you have a report from the World Investment Report. So the government is taking the textile, this manufacturing sector is the top priority manufacturing sector. So that's the commitment is coming from this view. So we have different incentives, as I said, like physical incentives, custom duty, 100% exemption from the payment of custom duties and other tax levied importers is granted to all capital goods. We have also spare part worth up to 15% of the total value. An investor who are entitled to duty-free privilege who buys capital goods or construction materials from local manufacturing industry shall be also refunded from the custom duty paid for raw materials. We have also income tax exemption for the investors engaged in manufacturing, agribusiness generation, from 1 to 9 years. We have income tax exemption for the also. And then we have also non-physical incentives like loss carry forward. We have also export incentive, physical incentive available to all exporters, include, with the exception of few products, no export tax is levied on Ethiopian export products. We have duty drawback scheme, voucher scheme. We have bonded factory and manufacturing warehouse schemes. These are those for exporter incentives. Saying this, when we come to this COVID impact, the Council of Ministers has recently approved several measures to stimulate the economy and support business survive to adverse the impact of COVID, especially our bank and financing case. The National Bank of Ethiopia avail 15 billion liquidity for private banks to enable them to provide debit relief and additional loans to their customer in need. Even the Development Bank cut lending interest rates to 7.45% for borrowers in the hotel and manufacturing, including textile industries. They have also the soft loan add to other 3 initiatives like engage in export, including like horticulture and textile companies. 2 billion soft loans for consumers, loan repayment schedule for all its borrowers. These also are to see for their liquidity problem of the industries. Banks also avail foreign currency for importers, primarily import goods and input material for the prevention of COVID-19. In physical reliefs, the tax exemption for the import of materials, as I said, and equipment to be used in the prevention of and the containment of COVID-19. Our Ministry of Revenue also expedites the VAT returns to support companies with cash flows. in the case of the labor protocol, we have a labor protocol with the Ministry of Labor, associations, and association from both from the manufacturers and from the laborers. We have a protocol. So in this protocol, we have a collective bargaining agreement negotiation. Is suspended for the coming 12 months. And the salary increment decisions are frozen for the coming 12 months. So the government is looking supporters to support companies from these impacts. In respect of flights and logistics, export manufacturing industries who do not use a railway service due to location distance will have a 50% discount export freight service also. Transport service also from the industry park to the port, we have a 50% discount price, and also 73% discount from manufacturing sector export using the Ethiopian shipping lines. Our Ethiopia-Djibouti Railway Share Company also transport export material from industrial parks and export manufacturing industries that comes through Mojo Dry Port to Djibouti free of charge for the next three months, starting from the last May 1st. So these also are, and we have also additional different incentives committed from the government to motivate the industries and companies. Thank you. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you so much, sir. And also thank you so much for touching on the questions around logistics, which I believe is always a very key question to look at. Now I'm very pleased to welcome our next panelist, Ms. Vandia Gichuru, who is the CEO and the co-founder of Vivo Activewear. Vivo Activewear is a retailing clothing business for the East African market, based here in Kenya, manufacturing here in Kenya. And Vivo Active has currently 14 physical stores. I think you have started in 2011. Vandia, I think your youngest baby, so to speak, is Shopsitu. You launched Shopsitu in December 2019. It's an online fashion store that offers affordable African fashion, but also accessories and beauty brands. And you feature there both your own brands, but also you feature other African brands from African SMEs. And I'm actually very pleased to say that Kipipeo from Rwanda, a woman-owned SME that produces kids' clothes, and it's actually one of our beneficiaries, is also available online in your store. So, Vandia, I would like to know from you, what is your vision for Shopsitu over the next 5 years? And, you know, how do your efforts support African SMEs? Over to you.
Morning, thank you so much, and hi to everybody. Thanks for having me. I think the experience that we've had with Vivo in particular over the last 9 years has shown the opportunity there is for local brands, and especially brands that are designing to meet the local market. So we realized that there was a gap in terms of what, you know, the global fashion community really designs for a very Western, very European client. And the Asian market is different as well. So there was a gap there that we have tried to meet, and have whatever success we've achieved, I think, is because of the fact that we design for this market. So when we launched Shopsitu, what we realized was there is an opportunity to bring these brands together and support local designers, local manufacturers to really create brands. So I'm going to keep emphasizing this because I think there's power in brands and the ability for brands to connect with their target markets. What I think is unique about what we're offering is it's a full suite of services. So it's not just your typical e-commerce marketplace, but we do handle content creation, we handle logistics, we do the distribution, we handle customer service. We will even support with product development. We have, for example, digital printing services, so we can help brands to customize their fabrics so that they're able to offer very unique products. We can partner with designers, with creatives across the market. I think what also is interesting is then we're able to bring down those costs. So we're able to bring down the costs of distribution and logistics and content creation, etc. So yes, we're keen to carry brands from across the region. So businesses that want to come into the Kenyan market from Rwanda, from other countries, but don't necessarily want to invest in their own infrastructure, their own physical stores. We're able to help them get into the market. We can work with manufacturers. So we're speaking to large factories who traditionally have just created product for their clients. And what we're saying is, why don't you also think of creating brands that you can, we can help with the market understanding to help you design for the market. You produce the products, but we will then support you on the distribution, the marketing, the content, the social media engagement, all the things that we have learned over the years can really help to support brands. And then of course, there are all the very many smaller brands as well. Companies have great ideas, fabulous products, but it doesn't make sense for each of them to have their own website, to worry about their own warehousing and logistics and stuff like that. So if we can bring those together, I think for those of you who know Kenya, we're all familiar with the Maasai markets, for example. There's no reason why some of those products can't be turned into brands that are then marketed across, not just Kenya, across the region. So it's looking at the local artisans, it's looking at, for example, those who are producing in Uhuru Market and places like that. How can they get their products across the retail market and even outside of Kenya? So when I think about 5 years from now, what I see is the opportunities with the Afri trade, where we can see how to bring products from other parts of Africa to Kenya and take Kenyan products across the continent. I'm very excited about the opportunities that e-commerce provides to do this in an efficient, cost-effective way. And because we're part of this group, I do believe as much as we will continue to develop our textile industry, I think the fashion fabric needs are so wide, so varied, that I'm very excited to support what Ajul said and to see how can we bring Indian textiles, Indian technology to support the production of our brands and the products that we're offering across our range. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vandia, for these very important points about talking about the brands versus a product, and really also about the opportunity that e-commerce offers for the fashion industry within this region, but even beyond at a more continental aspect. Now, I am very pleased to go to our next panelist and to welcome Mr. Goshu Negesh, the president of the Ethiopian Textile and Garment Manufacturing Association. And please let me also reiterate that ETGAMA is also our partner today. So in mid-February 2020, the India ITME Society facilitated INDO-AFRICA 2020. And you know, many of the participating Ethiopian companies expressed their interest in investing in new machinery. How important is it for your members to invest in machinery in a post-COVID-19 environment? And what are the constraints, if any? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Caroline, for giving me this opportunity to meet this webinar. I'm pleased to see Mr. Ashish of Canoria on the group, and Mr. Sodi too, and the other participants. Yeah, you're right. The ITMA that was conducted in Addis has given the opportunity to our members to, see new technologies that can be brought into Ethiopia. And as you know, now technology has become very important. As you can see, we are able to communicate from wherever we are, so that facilitating our interest. So technology will be very important aspect of the textile and garment sector in Ethiopia. So the first move that ITMA has taken to bring its machineries to Addis has given the opportunity to our members to see what technologically advanced machineries can be used in their future business development. So our members are very keen, to cooperate with Indian machine manufacturers, so that they use the advanced technology in every aspect of the operations, like in designs, in processing, and in developing new products, like what our colleagues what our colleague has said, to develop new brand that fits the need and the requirement of the customers or the end users. So I would say this was a great opportunity for us to cooperate with our Indian suppliers. And if the Indian machine manufacturers are willing to come and invest in Ethiopia, that would also give a great opportunity, to bring the cooperation to a higher level, instead of buying, from India. Then that will bring the cost and everything less than what would be imported from abroad. So, in my opinion, this was an eye-opening program that ITMA has opened, and if the Indians are interested in investing in Ethiopia, especially in manufacturing machineries, that would give a great opportunity to our members to go for better technology, machineries, and facilities. I thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So I think that shows that there is indeed an interest to invest in machinery and upgrade technology. So it remains very much important. I would now like to move to our next panelist, Mr. Sam Chakbati, the CEO of Jumia Kenya. Jumia is the leading e-commerce platform in Africa. It generates one transaction or lead every 2 seconds. And Sam, you have been with Jumia from its early days onwards. You have been responsible for the expansion of Jumia in different African markets. So you obviously know the e-commerce market on the African continent quite well. What is your market prognostic for the next 5 years, looking at the e-commerce market now on the African continent? How much will the fashion e-commerce grow? And what type of opportunities do you see for fashion manufacturers to reach new clients through e-commerce? Sam, over to you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I mean, so as you mentioned, Jumia is sort of an e-commerce leader across Africa. We're in 11 countries today, and with about 100 million unique visitors on our sites in 2019. Fashion is big in e-commerce in Africa today, though it does vary quite significantly across the continent. Across the continent, on average, fashion sales account for 25% of e-commerce sales by volume. And that's clothing, shoes, and accessories. It's up to 30% of sales in leading online fashion hubs in Nigeria and Egypt in particular. Morocco over-indexes, Ghana over-indexes, but it under-indexes also in some large e-commerce markets such as Kenya, where the fashion share of sales is only 10% today. And the main difference, the main explanation of those differences from our perspective was already hinted at by CS Minor. You know, one is the prevalence of the secondhand imports, and the second is the availability of, you know, at scale affordable fashion locally. And that's certainly our perspective on the Kenyan market. There are great manufacturers doing great stuff, largely for export. There are also great manufacturers doing stuff today, but who don't have the scale today to reach the price points for local markets, or the scale of production to support big demand. We anticipate high double-digit growth in online fashion sales across the continent. You know, that's going to be driven by the overall adoption growth of e-commerce across the continent, and also by across a number of different, you know, types of platforms. You know, large multi-category platforms such as Jumia, sort of specialist platforms such as Wandia's Shopsitu, and also social selling platforms like Instagram, which and that sort of that we're really excited by that. Actually, the diversification of offer is going to be a catalyst for e-commerce growth, because we need all of them. We need all of those different types. We need the different niches. We need the big platforms. We need the specialist ones. We need everything. But the biggest opportunity, to come to your second question, the biggest opportunity that we see is in the growth of supply, particularly in the markets where it's lacking today. You know, e-commerce is a viable channel, is an attractive channel for all manufacturers that want to, you know, 1, build their brands, 2, reach new clients, and 3, get paid, because you're interacting with, you know, professional organizations with good payment terms, etc. And you're interacting with typically 1 or 2, you know, professional partners, as opposed to many distributors or many different retailers, which are harder to manage. We think that the manufacturers that can hit the preference styles of the different markets and the price points are going to do great. And we really hope that that opportunity is going to be captured by local manufacturers. And in particular, those on the call that are producing at big scale for export markets today. You know, there is a real opportunity for you today in Kenya and across the rest of the continent as well. So it's time to look at that, and now more than ever. And it's also an opportunity, e-commerce as a channel for cross-border e-commerce. You know, e-commerce is a great way to test and learn the different African markets. You know, to set up products, to ship products, you know, by the order if you want to, or to send, you know, low volume of products into partners on the ground with warehouse, with logistics, who can handle all of that, as Wandia hinted as well. Today, thousands of Chinese manufacturers do that already with us, with Jumia. And that's a big business. There are hubs set up in China where, you know, sellers very easily drop off, and then we handle the logistics to get the stuff, you know, packaged, distributed across Africa, cleared and delivered to customers. We would love to do the same thing in India. And actually also in African hubs. Again, like, I think, wouldn't it be great if Ethiopian manufacturers could sell cross-border across the continent? Wouldn't it be great if Kenyan manufacturers could do the same? So that's the role that we hope e-commerce can play in all this.
Thank you so much, Sam. And thanks a lot for really pointing out what type of opportunities e-commerce can offer over the next coming years. I am now very pleased to welcome our next panelist, Mr. Ashish Agrawal, who is the Group CEO of Canoria Africa Textile. Mr. Agrawal, Canoria Africa Textile, based in Ethiopia, is the first eco-friendly integrated denim plant in East Africa, but actually also in the world. You know, looking back, have you been able to harvest the green dividend through price premiums for your output? Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. So good morning, Mr. Jerian, Madam Betty, Mr. Goshu, all the participants. Good morning to all participants from Africa, and good afternoon to all participants from India. It's already afternoon here in India now. So let me just give you a brief history about the Canoria group and why it decided to invest in Ethiopia and how this environmental came into the picture. Basically, Canoria Group is a chemical group in India. Canoria Chemicals is a reputed business house in India. In chemicals industries, we have jute industries, we are in automotive industries, we have a trading company, tea garden. It's a very diversified group. So our chairman was interested in investing in Africa, and finally, after all the due diligence, it was decided that we'll invest in Ethiopia. So Ethiopia has many other advantages. Besides, one big advantage is support from the government, which is a very big advantage, which Ethiopia do have. There's a patient's hearing and the action is taken immediately, which I've been personally experiencing in last 5 years. Any problem you go, there is a solution for that from the government side. Besides that, there's energy sector where the power is cheap, abundant labor available. So that attracted us to Ethiopia, and we have decided to get into Ethiopia. So when we went to our chairman for the environment, I'm coming to the point of environment. So the chairman was very clear on that matter that we have to follow the group policy, the group philosophy, the way of life. So it's very clear whether we invest in Africa, whether we invest in Europe or in India, environment is our philosophy of our group. So his words were, we need to keep this beautiful country as beautiful it is. That was his words during the initial discussion, what we had with him. So we have seen in other part of the world, especially in Asia or wherever the textile has grown. If I talk 200 years before in Europe or today earlier in Asia, the damage to the environment is there. Some damage are permanent in nature, some are temporary in nature from different sectors. And textile is one of the sector which is contributing to this damage to the environment. So then we decided that, okay, we'll put a zero liquid discharge, which was a very new concept for Ethiopia context, for the East Africa context, to have a zero liquid discharge, which was not mandatory to have in the Ethiopia context as per the pollution control norms. So we went with a very unique technology, which is normally used in the pharmaceutical industries. So that technology is treating the effluent without adding any chemicals and getting the zero liquid discharge and recycling the water. So actually we are recycling 95% of the water. So whatever water we are using, 95% is recycled back. 2% gets evaporated in the system somewhere, and 3% is converted into the salts. It's a very fine salts, which we are conducting trials with leather industries to use in the leather industry. It is a sulfate salt. So it's a practically with zero discharge. Besides that, we had electric boilers. So there was no air pollution. So there was no air pollution, there was no water pollution, there was no solid pollution. So absolutely, this was the company which had no pollution creating, zero pollution company in the world, the first denim manufacturer. And on top of that, Ethiopia is supplied with the hydropower, the green energy. So we became the first green denim plant in the world with almost zero carbon footprint, almost zero carbon footprint. So we became the first green denim plant in the world. And this is something which is basically we wanted to do it. It's our intention. What I appreciate Caroline has asked, whether we get the premium from the buyer for that. Of course, the buyer has its own market. They are tough. They have their own customers. So they don't give extra money for, okay, you have environment. They don't give you extra penny for that. That's for sure. But they really appreciate you. So we are working with the top end buyers of the world. We are working with Inditex, Zara. We are working with, we'll start with H&M. We are working with Bonprix, Germany. So all these buyers do appreciate what you are doing and acknowledge that. So actually, they're not contributing in terms of the price. Somewhere they have that consideration, but they appreciate and acknowledge and consider you as a long-term partner with you. So this has to be there, and we are starting an industrialization, a new era in Africa now, and this should be a part of life. This should be the way we should start industrialization, not after a decade controlling the damages. And I appreciate right from the PM office, Prime Minister of Ethiopia himself, His Excellency Prime Minister, the earlier Prime Minister visited the factory, watched this water treatment plant, and everybody from the government appreciated that. And they have started the similar kind of technology in all the textile parks. So if you go to the textile park, Awasa Textile Park, or if you go to Bolivia, everywhere there's a zero liquid discharge now. So they have water treatment, the best water treatment plant. And we are proud to set up a new benchmark in the East Africa in terms of environment. So I think so. This is one thing which we have to consider as a long term. Definitely it will not pay in a short term, but this should be the way we should do the manufacturing in Africa.
Thank you so much, Mr. Agrawal. Thank you very much for pointing out it's perhaps not about receiving premium prices, but it's still very, very important. And we have learned earlier this week from the buyers actually that it is for them nowadays a prerequisite to source also fabric. I would now like to move to the next panelist. I am very pleased to welcome Mr. Sankar, the president of the Textile Machinery Division of Lakshmi Machine Works. Mr. Sankar, your company is a leading textile machinery manufacturer in India, and you have started to the African continent in the late 70s. You have your office here in Nairobi since the early 80s. From your perspective, what role does machinery play for the African textile and apparel sector in the near future? How do you see the market trends, given that a lot of modern machinery currently idling is available at steep discounts? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn, and Her Excellency Madam Betty Maina, who was also incidentally visited our facility in Coimbatore, and also His Excellency Mr. Zuran, and where our gentleman had met him during the last show, which was held in Ethiopia, the Indo-Africa exhibition. And you've given the pre-information about our company and our association with the African market, so I don't have to elaborate. And I just want to give a small background about the trade, what's happening in the African side, which is closer about roughly as per the last data, maybe post-COVID it would have changed. As of the last data, it's about 36 billion USD is the transaction which takes place both for domestic and the overseas market. That's what is the data shows. And whereas the connectivity between the trade, what's happening, and the facility, the infrastructure in terms of the manufacturing from the spinning to the garment, spinning to the processing is not absolutely matched with that. That's what we could see as a gap. And from the perspective of the installation of the spindles, what the Africa has today is about 4 million, out of which our survey shows that 1.7 million is active, and out of that 1.7, 0.7 is in Egypt, which are active. That means literally there's only 1 million spindle which are actively in operation in the African continent. That's what we see it as a point. And there is a tremendous opportunity between India and the African side to work together in order to create a self-sustenance to feed the garmenting, which is likely to grow in the future as you have a special trade relationship with United States and EU. And we estimate roughly you need a capacity for the African closer to about 8 to 10 million spindles in the upcoming time in order to avoid the logistics of moving from one location to the other location, because the logistic cost also is going to be very expensive in the future. Now, recently, in the last year, we did an installation of an integrated plant in Kenya at Eldoret, and that's been a wonderful experience between both the Indian side and also the Kenyan side, which was it produces about 12 million meters of the cloth and absolutely integrated from the spinning to the processing. And not only we stopped with that from LMW side, we also did the skill development for the people who can contribute to make sure that the optimal results are obtained. So we have associated with Moi University in Kenya in order to create the skill development training institute. And also we did a small training center in the Rivatex factory, where we have been able to showcase some of the miniature version of the machine so that the skill levels are developed. So my only submission here is, if the raw material is available in the African continent, as we see the data is about 6 million bales of cotton, each of 480 pounds. And I'm sure with the raw material availability, and given a situation where if the power cost is managed, because next to, in the manufacturing cost, the raw material and the power is a major constitution. If the power cost is addressed in the Kenyan side, whereas Ethiopia, it's already on the lower side. And if that could be addressed, and I'm sure the needs of the local in order to facilitate the garment to be successful can be met with. And from our side, India, we have excellent technology, and also which creates a real value for our end user, and which can make them very competitive in the manufacturing cost and sustain in order to make sure the offering to the international markets such as US and Europe are absolutely positive from the African continent. And also one more important thing is that the automation which may require can be decided by the user country appropriately. If they are very clear about employment as a case, we have one type of technology. And if there is a full automation and with the digitization, that is also available from India. The Indian side is absolutely equipped to meet the needs of the African textile industry from end-to-end solution. And we have our local office in Kenya, in Nairobi, and they can always support the industry very well from LMW perspective. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sankar. I am now very pleased to welcome our next panelist, Ms. Angie Steiner. She is the Director of the Regional Office for East Africa DEG, the German Investment and Development Company. Antje, you offer access to finance to textile and apparel companies in East Africa. And access to finance obviously remains the big elephant in the room. And we all know that companies more than ever actually are really looking for affordable access to finance. Could you tell us how you support the textile and apparel industry in the current crisis in this region, but perhaps also beyond? Over to you.
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks very much. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. My great pleasure today to join you here in this interesting discussion. Yeah, rightly said, financing, especially short-term financing, is a very big topic these days, very obviously. But maybe allow me to start with 2 words, what we generally do, and then I can well, explain a bit on the COVID response situation and also how our vision is for the next 4 to 5 years for textile industry in Africa. I think this was the general request for today. So we are DEG is the private arm of the state-owned German state-owned bank. So that means we are financing, we provide long-term and equity financing for private sector companies. We do that sector agnostic, so in fact in many different areas globally in the developing countries and also in the textile industry, as said. So we have quite a few years experience in RMG financing in Asia, and well, could accompany our clients in many countries in this sector. In Bangladesh, but also China, Vietnam, also in India, especially also in India for many years. And we financed mainly CapEx, expansion of production, but also very interesting, the TA side, which means technical assistance for advisory services. I heard the impressive examples here before on the improvements regarding water treatment and well, all these green topics, which are getting more and more important in the sector, and also will be required and are required from the buyer side. So we did that and saw in the last years the trend to Africa. So we also are quite pleased to be in the position that we could even accompany clients which are in Asia to Africa, as they also, of course, realize the trend to have a production in Africa and can, you know, make advantage out of that interesting tax landscape and other really positive features. So that's, well, the current situation, and we are aware the textile sector is a very important sector for Africa regarding jobs, regarding creating income, of course, and being very interesting for the European and the US market. We see this very often. On the COVID response, the question was, how do we support the industry? So what we first did is having a look, of course, at our portfolio clients, trying to find out where they have financial needs, what we can do. Here we mainly were active and are active in 2 fields. One is, of course, the short-term liquidity support, as this is very obviously a topic now many clients experience, where support is needed. And B, we elaborated together on the TA side, which means how could we, not just with financing, how could we also support regarding advisory services, sometimes directly financing equipment, which was needed, which is needed, you know, very, very precise things like masks and you know, oxygen equipment, which also is necessary these days. So we try to be pragmatic here and just to support quickly without too much complication in the processes, which is not always easy, however. Yeah, generally we do have certain criteria, what we have to ensure if we come to a financing. Caroline, you asked me earlier to explain a bit what DFIs do and what is the criteria list we need. So partly I think it's already known. So of course we need some track record in the market and some experience which we can then simply rely on. We only are the bank, but the entrepreneur has to know the market and has to ensure, of course, the future of the company. And well, based on that, we elaborate together, what could the financing be about? Is it about CapEx? Is it about a greenfield? So we are quite flexible in this aspect, but what is our special point is then to combine that with some developmental targets. So we do not only financing, it must be also some developmental aspect in it, which is following our goal to fulfill the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, which is, I think, all known also to you. And we have special targets there, mainly about creating jobs and also, of course, fulfilling climate targets. And yeah, we elaborate then together and well, a plan how to fulfill certain aspects in that. And finally, the response we always got from our textile clients was always really good, as they told us, well, it was quite an achievement, and it was not easy for us at the beginning to follow these targets to fulfill it. But finally, it brought us really on a well, higher level, obviously, and a lot of positive acceptance on the buyer side, as this is more and more a required topic to have regarding quality of the supply chain. I think we heard about this earlier here already. Yeah, and finally, I think the question was if we support SMEs. Yes, we do. It's always a question of definition. What is SME? But altogether, that's what we mainly do. We support SMEs globally, and as I said earlier, also in the RMG and textile sector, also around the world. And we hope to do this even more, and also more in the next 5 years in East Africa. We have our first connections started a few months ago in Ethiopia, trying to set up there, to provide support there in the sector. I heard earlier very interesting aspects here on tax support, on governmental support to make it happen, that the industry can grow further in Ethiopia. And we really hope we can support that and contribute here from our side. Back to you, Caroline.
Thank you so much, Antje, for addressing this very important question about access to finance. I'm now pleased to move to our very last panelist, Mr. Navdeep Sodhi, partner at Guernsey Textile Organization. And Navdeep, my question to you this morning, because I also know that you have been very active in West Africa recently. So only 20% of the African cotton is currently transformed, while the rest is exported as a raw material. And at the same time, more than 90% of the continent's textile demand is met by imports. What, from your perspective, is the missing link, and what is required to create a robust and integrated textile and apparel sector on the continent? Navdeep, over to you, the last 4 minutes, and then we will go into Q&A. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ITC, and thank you, Citi. Well, the development of the industry in Africa, I mean, it requires a complete ecosystem, or what we also commonly refer to as the enabling environment. Now, what is this ecosystem? What is this enabling environment? Essentially, it has 5 building blocks, as we see. The first building block of this ecosystem is the vision and policies. So this essentially means political commitment to develop this sector in countries and over the continent. The second building block is the infrastructure and logistics. So this basically includes, the electricity, energy, water, special parks, ports, and so on. The third pillar, or the third building block, is the investment, and the other side of the same coin is incentives. Incentives are vital to attract investment, both local investment and also the FDI. Now, what does FDI bring? I mean, FDI essentially brings 3 things. First, of course, it's obvious, it brings the capital. Secondly, it brings the technical know-how. And thirdly, it brings the market, that's the customers know. The fourth building block of the textile ecosystem that is needed to foster the textile industry in Africa is the market access. Now, the market access, I mean, we all know that most African countries, they enjoy preferential market access to the developed countries, that's the US and the EU, but also what we need is the regional and the local market access. So there's a great expectation that the coming into force of the African free trade area, the Continental Free Trade Area of CAFTA, which came into force in the May of 2019, will integrate the market of 54 countries. So this will create a big potential for textiles to move seamlessly through the continent. And fifth building block of the textile ecosystem that we need in Africa is the capacity building. We know that, historically, Africa has not had a big industry unlike other Asian or European countries. So therefore, there's a need to create a skill set. There's a need to build capacity among the institutions, to the enterprises, and also to the human resources in terms of skill building at the micro level. Now, what do we get? This is often the question of the policy makers. What do we get if we do that? So the benefits of this ecosystem can be actually translated into very simple numbers. The first benefit or the impact would be that today we produce about 2 million tons of cotton in Africa. This could be at least partially transformed. The second is Africa has a trade that is both import and exports, currently to the tune of about $45 billion per annum, of which imports are 25 and exports are 20 billion. So there's a potential to integrate this with the domestic textile economy. What does it need? Obviously, that's the gap, to convert even half of Africa's cotton, that's about 1 million tons, into value-added products. We will need an investment of about $25 billion until 2030. Secondly, this will result into exports of about $45 to $50 billion until 2030, that is in the next 10 years, and that can represent something like 5% of the global trade in textiles and clothing by that time, and this would represent about 5% of the market, which is quite significant, And most importantly, Africa is a young continent, there's youth and employment is needed. Now, this industry has the potential to create about 5 million new jobs over the next 10 years if these things are done, And above all, this will help in integration of the African textile value chain, the supply into the global supply chain, In conclusion, our company Gearsy, we have had a lot of experience in Africa. So I'm quite optimistic, that in today's multipolar environment, multipolar global trading environment, the international buyers and the countries themselves, they have realized the potential. They are taking steps in this direction. I strongly feel that the momentum is building up. So therefore, among the audience, whether you are a buyer or a seller or an institution, you need to pay attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you raised a very important point that there is really an opportunity to create jobs at large scale, but it also really requires larger scale investment. I now would like to use the last minutes, and we have actually already reached 2 hours, to do a quick round of Q&As, and I will now go into some select questions. I have one question for you, Honorable CS, from Deepak. In India, Indian government promotes modernization of machinery by offering capital subsidy under TUFs. Does Kenyan government offer similar incentive to foreign investors wanting to set up fabric manufacturing units in Kenya or beyond?
Okay. Thank you. At present, no, we do not have a specific program on machinery upgradation for foreign investors. What we have done in the past, and Shankar mentioned that, is that we have invested in machinery upgradation for a local mill, because that is what we had. So I think if anybody has an interest in a new mill in the country, and depending on the offer, I'm sure that's something that we would be willing to review around whatever needs and they present to government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CS. I now have a question for Mr. Sharma. The support ecosystem for the garmenting industry is almost non-existent in Africa. Is there appetite from Indian industry to invest in capacities for threads, labels, zippers, etc.? So my question is to you, Deputy Chairman City. I'm just trying. I think he is currently offline.
He's on mute. He's on mute, Caroline. He's coming on. He's coming on.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you repeat your question, please?
So, sir, I have a question from the audience to you. The support ecosystem for the garmenting industry is almost non-existent in Africa. Is there appetite from Indian industry to invest in capacities for thread, labels, zippers, etc.? So we are back to the question about investment into the African continent.
Yeah, Caroline, you are asking me?
Yes, this was a question coming from the audience. And the question is whether you can see some appetite for investment, in particular in the yarn segment. I think we have heard that, you know, a lot of cotton is exported, but value addition is limited. So do you see that there is an interest, an appetite for investing in this segment?
Actually, yes, maybe, but as far as the Vardhaman group is concerned, because their stated policy is to stay only in India, and Vardhaman exports yarn into all the countries, including the African continent. So, because that is the major focus, yarn and fabric. So it is the only area is that base of manufacturing is always in India only, and that too, in two states within India, in Madhya Pradesh and in Punjab and Himachal Pradesh. So 3 places we have the manufacturing, but unfortunately they don't have any intention of moving outside the India for the manufacturing operation. They are supplying worldwide.
And if you now look beyond your own company, would you see that there is an interest by Indian companies to look into future investments in the near future in this segment?
Sure, I will check up, because I, along with Mr. Rajkumar, we are in the city. I'm the deputy chairman, he's the chairman. And whenever, if we get some communication officially to address to city, and we can discuss with our members whenever we have a meeting, and can promote asking them to diversify those who are interested for putting up the manufacturing operations into African countries. So we can do that from city side.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I now have a question for you, Mr. Goshu. So at Gamma, What is the domestic textile industry in Ethiopia doing to develop linkages with foreign investors to supply inputs such as fabric? What are the main problems that delay the upgrading of Ethiopian-owned industry? Sir, can you hear us? Okay, I'm afraid that he is not online, so I have
he is online, he's on mute. Mr. Goshu, I can see him on screen. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, I can also see him on screen. Okay, here we are. Please unmute yourself. Sir, are you there?
Caroline, I didn't hear you good.
Okay, I have a question for you from the audience. So the question for you is, what is the domestic textile industry in Ethiopia doing to develop linkages with foreign investors to supply inputs such as fabric? What are the main problems that delay the upgrading of Ethiopian-owned industry? Over to you. Okay, I am afraid that could you hear the question, sir?
So sorry. No. Can you repeat it, please?
So the question, sir, is, what is the domestic textile industry in Ethiopia doing to develop linkages with foreign investors so that the domestic textile sector can supply to the garments units, for example, in the industrial parks? So what are you doing about that? And what are the main challenges?
There is a weak link, to be frank, because the links that are existing between companies in the country are so weak, but we sometimes organize a kind of meeting where buyers can to admit that there is a weak link between the two parts of the sector. I mean, the fabric supplier making garments.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. I would suggest, it is now past 11, I would like to do one very last round with each of the panelists who are still with us to have really one last sentence on what is the future of the sector look like. So that is our wrap up today. So I will now open the floor for each panelist to have one last sentence. And I will start with Honorable CS. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Caroline, and thank you very much, ITC, for this session. I think my last remarks also build on what Sam and Wandia said, is that there is great potential for this sector, both for exports out of Africa, but also domestic sales. But I think it's important to take advantage of not just the external markets and trade agreements that our countries reach, but also take advantage of e-commerce. I've been struck every time my daughter is online. She's online shopping, and all the stuff that she's looking at is obviously not available in the country. And I'd have to tell Wandia that she's actually ended up buying something from Shopsitu something for, I think, one of your new lines for young people. And I think there's great opportunity to use our young people's commitment and their own newfound nationalism and focus on African goods to really utilize e-commerce to build up a large clientele in this regard. So I think the local textile industry can innovate and meet the needs of these young people and use the channels that reach them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CS. Over to you, Mr. Sharma, Deputy Chairman, City, for your last statement, please.
Offline, Caroline, move on.
Okay, Pankaj Bedi, any last comment? You're on mute.
Yeah, hi. So I would say that, we need to all accept the reality. We know what's happening and the challenges are there. We need to build up trust. We should also understand from the government's perspective that they don't lack intention, but they lack resources. So we should also, not continue complaining. We should be the part of the solution right now and not the problem. We all know the problem. We all know that the markets are down and everything. But there is great hope, and we should work together, have synergies, collaborate, and try to rebuild and rebuild based on the new realities, and the notions and all those, over assumptions should be stopped right now. We should first all focus to stabilize like we do in emergency, stabilize, stop bleeding, and start building again. There is great hope. I am a strong believer that Africa is in the forefront of benefiting from here because of the whole sourcing pattern and everything changing. So I strongly believe that we should believe in our community and also trust each other to build this. And government obviously is going to be a key player in this on the bounce back. And we continue to discuss with them, go with the solutions, and not only with the problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Last sentence, last statement from Mr. Siruhan Abebe Gisaf, please. Please unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you, Caroline, and all panelists. We had a good time, and I myself, I got a different perspective from you. Thank you. Hopefully we will have a potential, untapped potential capital. We need to utilize this potential, and I am very happy to invite you all Indian investors and business partners to come here and to develop this sector. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Vandia Gichuru, are you still with us? Do you have a last comment?
Just to say thanks again. And I think there's never been a time that we've needed partnerships as badly as we need them now. So I don't think we can afford to try and work. We have to support each other. And I think there'll be lots of ways that we've not worked traditionally together that the future will allow us to do. So I'm very keen for anyone who's interested in what we're doing with Shopsitu, please contact us. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Goshu Negash, do you have a last message for the audience?
Yes, Caroline. Yes, Caroline, I am there. Actually, I'm not sure if my message is getting through because of the network that I have. In any case, I would like to appreciate the organizer of this platform, which gave us a good insight of what is going on everywhere, where our participants are coming. Yes, we have to face the challenge
exert our utmost efforts to get through this difficult time of the COVID pandemic and other challenges. And I hope, because we live always with hope, I hope we will overcome all the challenges and get to wherever we want to go or to reach. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And one last sentence from Mr. Ashish Agrawal. Canoria.
Ultimately, what we feel that there is a lot of potential and hope in the Africa continent as such, and East Africa particularly. So the industrialization will definitely grow, and not only for the export market, whether it's US, Europe, but also once the treaty is goes on, this Africa continent treaty, free trade treaty, which will be a big game changer in the entire world, and this will help us everywhere. The industrialization will be a big boost in the entire Africa continent. I think so personally after this treaty. Thank you.
Thank you. Then Mr. Sankar. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. It was very well organized. And, you know, I have gone through many cycles of such dips in the past in my career. And textiles, we are fortunately in this field, which is next only to the food for the public. And I'm sure the textile will bounce back. That's my comment. And I wish everyone best wishes, and I'm sure we can sustain and make it happen in the future time.
Fantastic. Navdeep, do you have a last comment, Navdeep Sodhi?
Yes, thank you. Well, I mean, as we all know, the global textile industry is undergoing restructuring. And in this, I mean, Africa has an important potential. So therefore, whether you are on the demand side or you are on the supply side, there is an opportunity. I mean, you know, I can confirm this from our own experience because, I mean, we have a vast presence in this continent. I mean, we have a lot of interest, you know, from the institutions and potential investors, you know. I mean, my only hope is that the African governments and the policy makers, they can really work towards creating an enabling environment and, you know, foster the creation of the ecosystem that the textile industry needs. So we are optimistic that the future for Africa is bright. It'll take time and it'll need, you know, all hands on the deck. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining our webinar today and for listening in.
I think Mr. Pankaj Bedi wants to make one last, I saw his finger going up a few times.
Oh, sorry, you know that they're my disconnectors. Sorry about that, Pankaj.
Please consider my previous comment as the second last and this one as last. I want to take the opportunity here while our CS Betty is here and the ministry people are there from Mr. Zirulin from Ethiopia and government officials, that this is the time now that we should, you know, maybe it's a harsh word, but we should come out of the notion that we are a developing country, you know, we should, or a continent. We should believe in what our per capita income is and try to make tailor-made solutions for ourselves, instead of looking up to the solutions which America has or Europe has with per capita income of $50,000. We have a per capita income of $1,000. So we should now start looking at the solutions. Our key need here is create jobs and formal sector jobs so that, you know, then all the linkages can be developed. So I am really hoping that this, whatever, it's a very bad time right now. It is challenging for everybody. And though we are hopeful, but, you know, it's not going to be an easy walk. We need to start thinking on a multi-level, and do multitasking on policy making and strategy making on the bounce back. So I am really hoping that, you know, the governments will start looking into tailor-made solution for Africa, for the countries, and try to integrate countries, you know, and for example, we're talking about the free trade. Right now on table, already approved is the SADC tripartite agreement with EAC and COMESA. We should push to open that, start implementing so that the markets are at least open within those 650 million people which are now can be duty free to each other. So many things are there. Communities, countries, especially the Africa Union, needs to start working together. Stop thinking that we can continue doing, the same thing which other is doing. So Kenya is very strong in apparel manufacturing. We have the experience, we have the skill and everything. Maybe Ethiopia has better cotton farming. Uganda, Tanzania, all of them have good cotton farming. Kenya is also trying to develop, but the focus is that we can create equal jobs in farming as much as in apparel. And then we have the linkages like textile and all that. So we start thinking on those grounds and just focus on jobs, jobs, and jobs, because we don't want this health pandemic to become a social pandemic, later on. And at the same time, when a jobless becomes hungry, it is a serious issue for the country. So we need to start thinking on those lines. And I'm sure we are talking here, and if all the countries start talking to each other, that will be helpful for us. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Pankaj, for these words, and actually also for mentioning the cotton growing part. I think that is the part we didn't touch upon so much today, but it's also, of course, a very, very important. So ladies and gentlemen, I really would like to thank you that you joined us today. I thank all the panelists. I thank our partners, the India ITME Society, SITA, at Gamma, and of course I also thank our donor, the UK government. So thank you so much. I wish you all a wonderful day. Goodbye. We are closing this webinar now.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.